It's been almost 3 years since the Lane train rolled into the Magnolia State with hopes of turning around the Ole Miss football program. And while Kiffin has led the Rebels to some big wins since, the biggest one, the one he really wants, has proved elusive. His first season in charge saw Alabama win a shootout in Oxford, though the Rebels gave the Tide one of their toughest games in yet another national title campaign. And last year, with his quarterback returning to run his offense, many thought Kiffin could become the first Saban understudy to finally beat his old boss. And so did he.
Here we go. Get your popcorn ready.
But the Tide dominated, and Saban again kept his record perfect at the time against his former assistants. Now, a new year. This one's got a little bit of everything. Program-changing opportunity, personal pride, and playoff implications. Vaught Hemingway will be rocking. The only thing left to do, get your popcorn ready on CBS.
And welcome back to Cover 3's SEC Game of the Week pregame watch party, which is presented by Dr. Pepper, the one fans deserve. He is Tom Fornelli. I'm Chip Patterson. We are coming to you live all across the Cover 3 YouTube network, youtube.com/Cover3, the CBS Sports Twitter network. Lots to get into. Might have some special guests arrive as well. Tom Fornelli, as we are counting down to Alabama at Ole Miss, a game that kicks off at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch it on CBS. You can stream it on Paramount Plus. It's Nick Saban against Lane Kiffin. It's the Crimson Tide against one of the few programs to have multiple wins against Alabama in the last decade. We've broken this game down on the Cover 3 podcast. Now, as we are approaching kickoff, what are some of the big storylines that are standing out to you? What are the questions that you would like to see answered on the field?
Well, you know, Chip, you and I, we've often talked about gut check Saturdays. And I think this is a gut check Saturday for Alabama because the Tide find themselves in a position we are not accustomed to seeing this program in, not under Nick Saban, in which the college football playoff era, the BCS era, whatever it is, Alabama's out of the title running. And it's early November. After losing last week, they've got 2 losses. They lost to Tennessee earlier in the season. Now, there's no real shot at them getting to the college football playoff. They could still reach the SEC title game, and maybe they could still win an SEC title. But for a team that is pretty much coming into every single season with the idea of we want to get to the playoff, we want to win a national title game, they expect to win the SEC. That's one of the goals. It's not the biggest goal. What do we see from this team coming up against an Ole Miss team that is looking to beat Alabama? You know, Lane Kiffin has yet to beat Nick Saban since he's taken the job in Oxford. It's an Ole Miss team that could win the SEC West and could get a shot at the SEC title and a playoff berth of its own. So when it comes to looking at the motivation of these two teams, I don't know where Alabama's head is at. And Nick Saban even mentioned in press conferences this week, the players have to realize they still have a lot to play for. And he wasn't just talking about, you know, winning the division. He was talking about their NFL futures, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a real interesting to see how fired up does Alabama come out for this game. Is there a slow start? Do they come out hot? Do they maintain it? I have no idea what's going to happen this afternoon.
Yeah, and as we are coming to you live here in the Cover 3 SEC Game of the Week pregame presented by Dr. Pepper, the one fans deserve. We've got Arkansas now giving a little bit of a push to LSU. So you mentioned the stakes of this game, as we do have the SEC West up for grabs, as we do have the potential of seeing this whole thing shift. You know, LSU's been a little bit sloppy. They've had some issues. They haven't been able to quite pull away. So now we are looking at about 13-10 early in the fourth quarter. Lots to get to in Fayetteville. And now let us bring in our special guest. Looks like he's sitting there in the waiting room. We've been looking forward to have him. He is former Ole Miss quarterback Matt Corral, now of the Carolina Panthers, and he joins us here on the Cover 3 SEC pregame presented by Dr. Pepper, the one fans deserve. Matt, thank you so much for taking some time out of your Saturday. Are you in Oxford right now for the game?
Yeah, I'm actually in Coach Kiffin's office right now. I try to find a quiet space. I try to find a nice quiet spot so I could hop on here. So and they have renovations with our locker room. So and I totally forgot about it. So that's why it took forever. Our locker room is separate from where the offices are, and so we had to go to the other side of campus. So I had to get a cart, and I rode with Kiffin, and here I am.
How are his vibes right now? Like, you just got to spend some time with him.
There's a lot of good energy. There's a lot of good energy in that locker room right now. Really good to see some old faces, and I know those guys are ready to go out and handle their business.
Is there like a playbook for today? The game plan did he leave it in the office? Can you give us any hints what Ole Miss's plan is today?
I asked him. Like, he kind of mumbled. He mumbled. I think he's just locked in right now.
You were a part of an offense that was one of the best in the SEC. Ole Miss this year still has an offense that's one of the best in the SEC, but they're doing it in slightly different ways. Changeover at offensive coordinator, changeover into some of the approach, not to mention the quarterback, the personnel. What have you seen from the Ole Miss offense that's allowed them to continue to be productive, even with all the change from last year?
I mean, these guys can run the ball. They got a great running back room. They got a good quarterback at the helm, and they got a veteran O-line that knows what they're doing. So I think when you put all that together, you get the outcome of Ole Miss's execution. So I'm proud of those guys, and I'm excited to see them play today.
Now, as you know, when you were at Ole Miss last year's, obviously the Alabama game is a big game every single season because Alabama has been, the preeminent power in the division. But is there anything differently for, like, when you're preparing to face this defense for what they've done in recent years and just the reputation that they have? Was there anything differently you would do during the week to prepare for Alabama, or was it just kind of, you take the same approach?
You take the same approach, man, because it's just another game. It's the most important game because it's the next one. And, I know that's something that's always been said when I was here with Kiff. And, Alabama's not going to do anything special, meaning like they're not going to, change anything. They're going to play what they play. They're going to line up in what they've been doing and, beat us. That's what, Coach Saban has confidence in his players to execute. And he's been doing it for years and years. So, it's just, we can't beat ourselves this week. So, we gotta play to the expectation that we can play to.
Was there anything schematically that they did that you didn't see other teams doing that was just kind of something else you had to conquer that week?
It was just a simple cover 4. And when you brought a motion across the ball, they rolled down to cover 3. And that was it. They brought a lot of nickel pressures. And for us, they brought a lot of cross dogs with the linebackers as well. So, again, nothing like out of the ordinary to that they do, but they just do it really well.
So Will Anderson, like, what's that experience like mentally when you're having to go up against number 31 on the other side of that?
I try not to think about it, because I got, I see Alabama's guys and I'm like, okay, these guys are pretty big. And I look at my guys, I'm like, all right, we're pretty big too. So I'm not too worried about it. So no, but Will's a great athlete, man, and as everybody could see, and a good person off the field, and just my experiences playing against him. That guy is a freak, man. He's a freak.
So obviously you've been in this game a couple of times. You're not there this year. Jackson Dart is playing. What advice would you give Jackson Dart going into this game to just, to give him the best advice, to give him the best preparation for this one?
I mean, all I could really say is just be you, man. Like, play your game. You don't got to be a superhero. You don't need to, chase the big plays. Let the big plays come to you. And again, don't do anything different. And like kind of going back to what you had asked earlier, like what you would do differently if heading into Alabama week. Like, nah, just be yourself and make sure everybody else is doing their job, and keep everybody focused on being focused. So there's nothing that is too out of the ordinary for this team. He just needs to make sure everybody's just doing their job and everybody trusts in that guy, and he's got trust in them, and that's all they need.
When you have a team like where Ole Miss is at right now, there's like more than 50 newcomers between the freshmen and between the transfers.
There's a
into
lot
the
of new
program.
faces in that locker room.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
a lot
A
of
lot
new
of new faces. What does that say about Lane Kiffin or about the program that Lane has created that allows this group of newcomers to all be able to gel together? Like, what do you think is some of that secret sauce there?
They're growing, man. They're growing, and Kiffin's a very, I remember being on the outside of this program, or not the outside of the program, but outside of before I played with Kiffin. I would like if I saw the experiences like that were being posted on Twitter, that were Ole Miss's video content creators were putting out there. It's like, oh, if I was just a kid in high school, like I want to go play for that. That looks fun. And I think that's just what he does, and he keeps it real simple. Like, and honestly, that's just how he is. Like he has fun, and he wins while doing it. So I mean, why not be a part of that?
Speaking of being able to sell the kids on the program, what was it like for you? A Southern California kid. What was the culture shock like for you coming from Southern California and ending up in Oxford, Mississippi? How was it different? How did you adjust?
It was the cowboy boots and the cowboy hats. No, I'm just kidding. Not with the cowboy hats, but no, everybody was very welcoming, man. Everybody was very welcoming and very family oriented spot for sure. And you really felt that going around the town, and it being a big college town. Everybody shows love and support, and it really comes from a genuine spot. And I think that's what separated this place for me.
Now, I'm sure that you never in your like wildest dreams or hopes or plans or expectations were thinking that your first year of professional football would include an injury right from the outset. So just like, honestly, like on a human level, how you doing, man? Like, how's recovery going? Like you've the changeover at head coach. Like there's a lot going on in your world first year of professional football.
Yeah, it's the business, and you learn to love it. You really do. You learn to love the process, and you learn to, not be attached to what you thought was what it should be, or God's got a plan for you, and He's never wrong. And I had obviously anybody who's been hurt. I mean, especially the timing it was for me. It's tough. It's tough in the very beginning, and you learn to work through that. And for me personally, my relationships grew stronger. The people around me, everybody gathered around, and I really felt the love and support that I needed, even though I wanted to, not talk to anybody and be down and about it. But even the quarterback room at the Panthers, man, they've been nothing but showing love and helping me be the player I want to be. And I've been picking their brain about the game, because they've been playing. You got Sam, PJ, and Baker, and Jacob was there for a little bit, Eason, and those guys got some experience, man, and they're great dudes, and they've helped me a lot. And I'm forever thankful for that.
That's awesome.
It's been a rough start, but you guys are still in the hunt in the NFC South. You guys could still make a run there and win that division.
We needed that one. Thursday. That was a big
win over Atlanta.
Yeah, did you know when you looked at the schedule, when you were like, let's see, Thursday night, oh, that's Alabama. Like, did you have this trip lined up perfectly?
Planned it out, yes, sir.
Oh man, it's about as good as it can get for Matt Corral to be able to get back. If you're just joining us here on the Cover 3 SEC pregame presented by Dr. Pepper, the one fans deserve, he is former Ole Miss quarterback, now Carolina Panthers quarterback Matt Corral, and he is joining us. We're not kidding. We see the chat asking questions from Lane Kiffin's office as we count down to Ole Miss and Alabama in the SEC on CBS Game of the Week. You can watch it on CBS. You can stream it on Paramount Plus.
Going back to the NFL questions, we're talking about your time now in Carolina, that in the professional life, like going back to last season at Ole Miss, Jeff Lebby he's at Oklahoma running the offense there, but he was your offensive coordinator with the Rebels. What kind of similarities are you seeing between the offense you were running last season in Oxford compared to what you're doing now in Charlotte? Because we've seen over the years, like the NFL is becoming more and more college-like, where there used to be something like, I don't know whether it was pride or just stubbornness. They refused to adopt a lot of the same principles we've seen in the college game for years. From what you've been able to get so far, do you see a lot of similarities in what you're doing in Charlotte compared to what you were doing in Oxford?
100%. And it's very they call the NFL a copycat league. And, Kiffin was one of those dudes who actually took concepts from the NFL, and we ran a lot of them, and we called them what was it, the Mardi Gras reads, and no, yeah, they're called Mardi Gras reads, and that's what they call them. Like I thought it was a coincidence that Kiffin just called it that, and then I get to the league and they call it that too. So I'm like, oh, okay, so I see that, and then they're literally the same exact plays, and there's definitely similarities, but it's just called differently. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only difference. Like, if you could just detach of how it's called, but treat it the same way, you'll be fine. I had a problem doing that. So, because it is a lot more wordier, and me being in a system of just seeing two signals and then knowing what to do from there, it made it a bit of a transition for sure.
All right, Matt, you've been incredibly gracious with your time, and we do appreciate you joining us. So before you go, we got to can we get a game prediction or a key to the game? How do you think it's going to play out there in Oxford for the SEC on CBS Game of the Week?
I think it's going to be going back and forth. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I feel like if we can establish the run game early, we'll have a great chance of winning the game for sure. But we got to run the ball on these guys to win the game.
Got to run the ball, got to establish it early, and that's what Matt Corral says the Rebs have to do. Matt, thank you so much for joining us here on the Cover 3 SEC Pregame presented by Dr. Pepper. That was awesome. Yeah. Mardi Gras reads.
I wonder why they call them Mardi Gras reads. Like, do you get beads? What do you get?
I think it sounds like Mardi Gras beads, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know that happens because coaches spend 15 hours a day in a film room and you just start spinning out of control with what you're going to call things, We spend too much time talking to each other on the Cover 3 podcast. Our lingo gets a little out of control. I'm sure it's the same with coaches.
Did you feel like any kind of tingle when he was talking about like double dog blitzes and all that kind of stuff? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. And he was like, bring the man in motion, cover 4 rotates into a cover 3. Yeah.
It's like, getting me going. I'm actually kind of mad. I got so lost in the talk there that I forgot to ask him about his eye black. So I feel like I let our listeners down on that one because I have long been an admirer of Matt Corral's eye black game, and I wanted to know everything about the routine. How does he go into it? What's the plan? Did it just happen by accident? How much time does it take to get ready? And does it actually help in a game to wear eye black?
Well, listen, he was coming to us live from the belly of the beast in Lane Kiffin's office. We needed to get down to the brass tacks, to the football stuff, and he was certainly giving it to us. So what are the chances in your eyes that Ole Miss is going to be able to get out there and really establish the run early against this Alabama defense?
Well, I agree with him. I think it's a huge thing that they need to do, and it's going to be very important because I just don't know if they've got the overall consistency in the passing attack to really, drive the ball down the field consistently and repeatedly against this defense. But it's not going to be simple because as good as Ole Miss is, Alabama's rush defense, like we saw Tennessee able to exploit it with what it was doing offensively in the secondary, getting behind them, getting guys in bad matchups, exploiting them, Jalen Hyatt specifically. But nobody's really been able to run the ball that effectively against Alabama all season long, and that is going to be a huge thing in this one. But Ole Miss is probably one of the best rushing offenses that Alabama will have faced to this point. Like, I think Tennessee was able to run the ball, and Tennessee can run the ball well. But other than that, I don't know who the most outstanding rushing offense that the Tide has faced. So this could be the tougher test for them so far. And I think that, the atmosphere too in this game, like Matt was saying, if they get off to a quick start and that place gets going and, you get the juice going through the crowd, if Alabama finds itself in a hole, kind of like what we talked about at the top of the show, what's the motivation for this team? They get down early. What do they do? Do they kind of just pack it in, or can they get fired up and ready to go again? It's going to be really interesting to see.
Because when you get down to playing, again, as Matt said, they don't do anything really tricky defensively. They just happen to have some of the best players in the country and, do execute at a high level. Man, if there's any slight drop off in focus against a rushing attack that's so versatile, that goes up tempo, that tries to be able to catch you looking at the wrong place, at the eye candy that they got moving around before the snap, then there could be some explosive plays to be had. And those explosive plays are exactly how the juice gets going. we've looked at the Ole Miss defense. We spent a lot of time, of course, having Matt Corral on, talking about Ole Miss offense against Alabama defense. He can give us some perspective on that. But what about this Ole Miss defense going up against Bryce Young and the Alabama offense? And I ask because you and I were on CBS Sports HQ earlier today, and we were pointing out an interesting trend that last year, in a 2-point win at Florida, in a 3-point loss at Texas A&M, and in a 2.4 overtime win at Auburn, in addition to this year, a 1-point win at Texas, a 3-point loss at Tennessee, and a 1-point loss at LSU, while the offense has put up big numbers in some of those close games in true road environments, they've also kind of fallen asleep at the wheel. For Tennessee, it was early on. Auburn, it was early on, came on a little bit late. What can we expect from this Alabama offense in yet another true road environment?
They need to run the ball too. Like Matt might have been talking to both offenses. I think that one thing Alabama should try to do, because I think if you look at this Ole Miss defense, their weak spot is against the run. Like against the pass, they've been pretty all right. And what they actually do well is they get after the quarterback. They put pressure on opposing QBs. And we have seen, like you mentioned, those road games, Bryce Young's kind of, scrambling a lot in the pocket. He's been under pressure in a lot of these road environments because this is an Alabama offensive line that frankly has not been up to the same standard that we have seen so many Alabama offensive lines play at in the past. And a lot of what Alabama does, their biggest plays, we talked about it on the show earlier this week in the passing game, generally come from Bryce Young having to scramble in the pocket, buying time, guys going into the fire drill mode, and him making a play down the field. So I think for Ole Miss, what you want to do is you want to heat them up. You have to get pressured. They are a good defense at causing chaos and havoc in the backfield, but they have to figure out a way to do that while keeping Bryce Young hemmed in the pocket to not allow him to get outside the numbers to find guys downfield. And then when they do that, if Alabama's running the ball, if they get, Bryce Young's throwing down the field, they have to tackle. Because one thing that I've noticed with Ole Miss this year is schematically, they're not bad. I think that they're sound in their assignments. You don't see a ton of mistakes, but they miss tackles. And I think that you cannot afford, if you're going to beat Alabama, I know that it is, a 2-loss Alabama, and maybe it's not the same Alabama team we have seen over the years. But if you want to beat this team, you have to tackle. You cannot give them extra yards, which could lead to extra first downs and keep drives alive. So you have to keep the play in front of you. And when you have the chance to make the play, make it. And if you could cause some havoc in the backfield, maybe get a turnover or two, you will find yourself in a position to win this game. Because as you were saying, Alabama has not been a team for the last 2 years that has really proven to be able to pull away from good teams when on the road. When you look at their best road games, they've generally been against somewhat mediocre teams. So this is not a mediocre Ole Miss team. This is a good Ole Miss team with an offense that could hurt you. So it's going to be really interesting to see if that defense can make some plays and keep them in the game and give that offense a chance to do what it does well and put points on the board.
What's your game prediction?
I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think Alabama will be leaning on the run more because as we saw last year, when Lane started the game with the infamous quote, "Get your popcorn ready," thought it was going to be a huge game. He had Matt Corral there and they just got off to a bad start. Alabama blitzed them right from the start, put them in a hole, and they were never able to dig out of it. And Alabama did that by running the ball on them. They were able to run the ball very effectively. They ran the ball 50 times, more than they've run the ball in any other game during the season, and certainly more than they've run the ball in any game this season because Bill O'Brien seems to have lost that part of the playbook. But I think we're going to see, coming off that loss last week, they're going to get back to that. They're going to try to establish the run against this defense, which will probably impact their ability to score a lot of points, which will keep it close. So I think Alabama wins. I'm not nearly as confident as I would have been in any other previous season. I do think that even if this isn't maybe quote unquote Lane Kiffin's best chance to knock off Alabama like we thought last year was, I think it is. I think that this Ole Miss team is better equipped to do it against this version of Alabama. So I think it's going to be a close game. I would take the under and Ole Miss to cover, and I think Ole Miss can pull off the upset.
Give me Alabama 31, Ole Miss 21. I think that this is a spot where Ole Miss might find itself in a reverse of last year where they are able to get off to a quick start. I am 100% going to cliche this all the way out and say that the first 15 plays by Lane Kiffin with 2 weeks to prepare for this game, probably going to be pretty good. Probably have some tendencies diagnosed. And if we can remember, because Tom, we've worked at CBS Sports for a long time now, the play card tosses when he was offensive coordinator for Alabama, when he just knew based on the reaction of a single linebacker or a single safety that there was about to be a huge touchdown, I kind of think we might be set for that. But I also don't think that Ole Miss is going to be able to sustain that over the course of the game. And if Alabama does end up, trying to play a little bit of keep away, trying to keep that Ole Miss offense from getting into a rhythm, the one thing that Ole Miss has to avoid in this game is 3rd and long, because
for sure,
Matt Corral is a very different passing threat than Jackson Dart, and the wide receivers that he was playing with were performing at a different level than the wide receivers that are current, or pass catchers too, that are out there right now for the Rebels. And so I think that Jackson Dart in a 3rd and long situation is a losing position for this Ole Miss offense. And so they have got to win 1st and 2nd down. It's like you're almost going to be able to tell in these possessions what's going to happen based on what happens on 1st and 2nd down. The inability to be able to pour on more points late, especially from a potential, 3rd and long type scenario, I think could end up hurting the Rebels down the line.
So you gave a score position. I think it'd only be fair if I give one too. I'm going to say Alabama 27, Ole Miss 23.
That is a lower score.
That kind of sticks to, what we've seen from Alabama on the road this year. They haven't really been able to put teams away, and we've seen them have to come back and be in, situations where they had to make plays in the 4th quarter just to take the lead, let alone put the game away. So again, I think it's going to be a great game. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see. I've said it a couple times already. How does Alabama respond to the adversity of not having a national title to play for? Because nobody on that roster went to Alabama trying to get to a New Year's Day bowl game. You know what I mean? They got trying to get the college football playoff and get to the NFL. NFL is still there. But the national title, that's out the window.
So as we are wrapping things up here live on the Cover 3 SEC pregame presented by Dr. Pepper, if you are an Ole Miss staffer, are you letting them know about what the score and the situation is in Fayetteville? Because I am currently watching, and LSU is on defense. Arkansas has the ball down 13-10 with about 5 minutes
left. Yep.
5 minutes left in the 4th quarter. Arkansas marching with a chance to tie or take the lead. And an LSU loss, just to remind everybody, would then put Ole Miss in a position where a win against the Crimson Tide would put them into solo first place in the SEC West.
Depends on the vibe in the locker room right now. If they seem fired up and ready to play and they're ready to go get it, I'm not mentioning it. If I'm questioning the motivation, if I'm looking in their eyes and they go a little timid, I'm letting them know, listen, LSU might be losing right now. We win this game, it's ours. Our fate is in front of us. So I think I got to read my locker room before I come up with my answer to that one.
The SEC championship game was first established in 1992. Ole Miss has never made an appearance in the SEC championship game. An LSU loss and an Ole Miss win wouldn't cement it, but it would certainly change the math on what the Rebels have to do for what would be a historic season in Oxford for the Lane train.
The math just changed in Fayetteville, by the way.
Oh, is that a stupid score?
I don't know if they might have to review it. That might have been an incomplete pass. But yeah, so now I have to change my answer. What do I tell my team? Let me see the outcome of this review that's about to take place.
Yeah. Still, like Matt Corral, our guest from earlier on the SEC pregame, he led Ole Miss to a 10-2 season, and that was one of the best regular seasons in program history. There's still a lot on the line, and given the way that LSU has played here, I don't think that we can trust that the Tigers are going to be able to get it all the way home for the rest of the season. There still is another road trip for LSU as they also have to go play Texas A&M at the end of the year. You want to talk about it? Wouldn't it be hilarious? What about 7-loss Texas A&M handing LSU a loss in the final regular season game of the year to throw this whole SEC West up in the air?
It would be a perfect cap to what's been a strange season everywhere you look.
Amazing. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Our thanks to former Ole Miss, now Carolina Panthers quarterback Matt Corral for joining us. Thank you to Tom Fornelli, and thank you to Dr. Pepper for the Cover 3 SEC pregame presented by Dr. Pepper, the one fans deserve.